Welcome to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by thesoberclub.com. I'm Jenny Grace. This is for you if you've quit the booze or you'd like to, or maybe you're just sober curious. I'll bring you tips and motivation without any judgment, and there'll be inspiration from experts, quit-lit authors, and sober heroes. Feeling like your sobriety journey has given you a whole new lease of life? Are you feeling super enthusiastic about sobriety? Ever thought about turning that experience into something bigger, something that could inspire and help others while also building a career that feels truly magical? Why not explore a career that aligns with your values? Think about being a sober coach. You'll play a key role in the growing sober curious movement, guiding people towards living their best life without the booze. And of course, you'll lay the foundations for your own journey to well-being. Here's why this work is really special. You get to make a real impact and help others navigate the same path that you've walked. There's personal transformation there, laying the foundations for your own growth and developing your knowledge of holistic health and well-being. Flexibility, build a career and a heart-centered brand on your own terms. Use your story, it's your greatest asset. Grow personally and professionally. Coaching is all about the connection, the continuous learning and the collaboration. You would become part of our family. We have a training that is so comprehensive, from the core modules right through to all the supporting materials and the business sessions. We've got you covered, and you don't need prior experience as a coach. You do, however, need to have had the experience of choosing sobriety and feeling absolutely passionate about inspiring others. So if you're interested, go to thesoberclub.com, click on the main menu, become a sober coach, and then we can arrange to have a chat. They're tiny groups, lots of one-to-one involvement. Get in touch. Hi, and welcome to the podcast. I hope you're well. I've been lucky enough to have a few days away. Just been, really great to just step away and sort of reconsider everything. And of course, being in the sunshine was really nice. Apologies to you. Well, it's not my fault, but I do feel really sad for everyone who was totally rooting for the football the other night. It's such a massive thing, isn't it, for the UK? And so commiserations if football is your big thing. And that's one of the reasons really that I wanted to do this podcast this week, was because the sun's been shining and it's been the football, there's been an awful lot of talk about alcohol. There really has, and an awful lot of people who have been worse for wear. So I thought I would just, in today's episode, just do something a little bit different. We're not going to have a guest, not going to have an interview. So it's just you and me, or just me really, having a little bit of a chat about my favorite mantra, which, as you know, is keep the ritual, change the ingredients. Now, it is such a simple concept, but it's transformed lots of people's alcohol-free journey, including my own, because it just taps into something much deeper than just saying no to a drink. It really does bring in the psychology, the dopamine, the sense of reward, the identity, and the way that we as humans just basically love a treat. So I'm just going to dive into all of this today. I know that lots of you will have heard me say this stuff lots of times before, but it's just possible that somebody might be coming to this fresh and they just find this podcast and it sort of lays out everything they needed to know about, can I or can't I have alcohol-free drinks? Should I choose them? What should I choose? What about the ABV and all of that stuff? So I just thought we'd dig into it all. And see where we go from there. And if there's any questions or comments, please drop me a message. And this podcast is not sponsored. I'm not getting any money for it. I will mention a couple of brands just because I really love them. And by the way, if you are someone who wants to sponsor the podcast, well, you're very welcome. I would absolutely love to collaborate with you, as long as I really love what you do. But just to make it clear that I'm literally speaking from my own opinions here and the stuff that I really love. So Where should we start? Well, you know what? I'm going to start with something that one of my clients, my one-to-one coaching clients, said to me a couple of weeks ago. I always have a way for people to contact me, obviously between sessions. It can, I can hold them accountable. And she messaged me and she said, I, I, I forget the actual words, but it was words to the effect of, you were absolutely right about looking to alcohol-free drinks. A cold alcohol-free beer has literally just saved my ass. And when we then got to speak, she explained to me that she'd had a really, really tricky day, all kinds of things kicking off. It's called life, isn't it? There'd been lots of tricky stuff to deal with, some of it quite upsetting, lots of triggering things. And her mindset was such that she was just craving a drink to, as she put it, take the edge off. She just wanted a drink. And in that instance, there wasn't really anything else that I could have said, go read a book, go do something else. Of course, that is what we recommend, that we try to get to a point where we can choose a different distraction or a different form of self-care, whatever that might be. But in this instance, she just described, I just wanted to reach for a drink. I just needed to step away from the noise and just do what I'd always done, which is have that sort of sigh of relief by reaching for a drink. Now, we all know that it's not actually the drink that was giving her that, it's the associations. So she remembered what I'd said. Fortunately, she had a cold alcohol-free beer in the fridge. She reached for it, she drank that, and she got that feeling, that sigh, and she was back on track. So it literally saved her ass. And it does, because rituals matter to us. They matter as grown-up adults. They really do. We think that we're craving the alcohol. We think that it's the alcohol we want, but it isn't actually the alcohol. It's a moment. For most of us, gray area drinkers, people who are functioning fine, just drinking more than we want to. It's about the association. It's about the moment that we want, and it's that sort of transition or reward or treat or signal that the day is over and now we can relax, whatever it might be. We are ritualistic creatures. We love that feeling of, oh right, so I can slip out of my work shoes now and I can relax. Oh, this is me time now. That used to be me, when the kids were young. If I could leave the kids if someone else could care for them for an hour, and I could go round and to wine bar and have me time, I thought of that as my treat, as my self-care. So it's those feelings of, oh, now I can be me, now I can relax, now I can celebrate. But it's the ritual. That's the part that soothes you. That's the part that gives you that little sense of reward, that sense of dopamine. It's not the alcohol. You get the dopamine, you get the reward, you get the treat despite the alcohol, but not because of it. In fact, they do say, don't they, that the dopamine is something, well, let's just talk about dopamine for a minute. The dopamine isn't the chemical, it's the anticipation. It's the what fires off before the reward, not after it. It's the motivation that gets you to reach for the glass in the first place. So in fact, they reckon that what happens is when we reach for a drink, that dopamine, that anticipation kicks in a few seconds before we actually take the drink. So the brain learns to think of it like, oh, nice glass, some cold liquid in it. That's a treat. That will give me dopamine. But of course, what we know is that actually alcohol just hijacks that system. Really, it just becomes the shortcut. When you remove the alcohol, you don't remove the dopamine pathway. You just need to retrain that dopamine pathway. So, let me just say that again. Alcohol dulls the reward system over time. It actually blunts the dopamine because it teaches your brain that, oh, that's not quite enough this time. We need more. I need an extra glass now to feel the same effect. But the ritual, that's the cool part, the nice glass. And tell me, please, I wish I knew why a glass had to be called after, something alcoholic that goes in it. It's crazy. But anyway, we all know what we mean. A nice glass, the ice, the way you pour it, the chilled, preferably relatively expensive grown up drink, not the crappy Coke and the crappy warm orange juice or the plain water. It's the grown up drink. That's what we crave. It's when we sit down, it's when we change our clothes, it's when we sit by a river, it's when we're chinking a glass with a friend. It's the ritual around it. And so often when people say, oh, if I quit alcohol, I'm really going to miss my wine. I love the taste of it. They don't mean that. They mean I miss the ritual, or I might miss the associations. It's not the taste. If it were only the taste, you would be perfectly happy to have that wine, not chilled, just completely warm and having been left out in the sunshine in a polystyrene cup while you're standing, next to a recycling center and loading your bin bags in at the same time. That would not feel as good. It's the ritual, it's the associations. And that's why we can change the ingredients, but we don't change the ritual, or at least not to start with. Over time, you may find you've got way more going on than you have at the moment. You don't really, in inverted commas, need so much. But at the beginning, we really need to keep that ritual. So just back on the dopamine then. As I said, alcohol will effectively become a shortcut. When you remove the alcohol, you don't remove the dopamine pathway, but you do just need to retrain it. And it will retrain. When you have, a lovely grown-up alcohol-free drink in a lovely glass, that can trigger the same anticipatory dopamine, because remember, it is only anticipatory. It's not the actual drink that does it. It's the anticipation. And you can have all of that without the crash, without the anxiety, without the poor sleep, without the self-recrimination, without the toxins, for God's sake. And that's why, people, as I say, they'll say, I don't, it's not alcohol that I miss. It's the moment. We have to keep the moments. We have to keep the ritual, change the ingredients. And back on the glasses, honestly, I can't stress enough, there's a psychology behind a nice glass. It feels special for us. It feels grown up. It feels like a reward. I've had lots of clients who've said to me, I know I've heard you talk about alcohol-free drinks, but really, I don't need to do that because I'm really cool with my cup of tea. I love a cup of tea. I'm good with that. Well, maybe. But once you get yourself to that point where the triggers come in, maybe friends have come around, they're chinking their champagne bottle or whatever. They've got the glasses out. They're sitting in the garden. Maybe you've gone to somewhere and you're sitting by a river, whatever it might be for you. When the associations come in, just drinking your tea or even, water or whatever out of a mug or some kind of random tumbler is not going to do it for you. Make this part beautiful. Make it adult. Make it lovely. Make it a nice stemmed wine glass or a cut glass tumbler or a lovely highball or whatever you like, but make it a lovely glass. If you don't have nice glasses, go treat yourself, literally, as part of your tips for staying sober. Treat yourself to lovely glasses, really lovely glasses. It's having the alcohol-free drink, and we'll go on to what that's going to mean in a moment, in a proper glass that can give you the feeling that you're looking for without the alcohol. And that is the magic of ritual. So let's just talk about these drinks then, because as everybody knows, the alcohol-free drinks world has just massively expanded. I mean, it's quite incredible. If I'd have been doing this podcast, well, even 8 years ago, even when I first quit, I mean, there were a lot of alcohol-free drinks, but nothing like the choice there is now. And if I'd been doing this podcast 15 years ago, well, I'd have just been chatting about probably one beer and that would have been it, and some wine that tasted a bit like vinegar. But the reality is it's changed dramatically. So what we know is there are drinks that some people would argue are trying to be replacement drinks, in inverted commas. I personally have no problem with that at all. If you want a zero beer, alcohol-free beer, if you want alcohol-free wine, alcohol-free fizz, as far as I'm concerned, no problem with that. That's my personal opinion. The reason I believe that is because they look beautiful. They're lovely bottles. They've been crafted well. They have a similar taste to the original, but they're not trying to replicate it, and they contain no alcohol. So when people say to me, "Oh, I'm worried if I have a 0% beer that it will make me drink the real beer," well, you must listen to yourself in that instance. If you genuinely think that something's going to trigger you to go back to alcohol, then of course don't do it. Choose something else. But for me, I was just delighted to find that I can have a beautiful bottle, a bottle that looks lovely, and pour the 0% wine into a lovely glass and sip that like a grown up alcohol free drink and know that I am consuming no alcohol. So I can't become addicted because there's nothing addictive in it, if that makes sense. They're not addictive because they don't contain any alcohol. So it's really important to recognize that, and don't get fearful that if you start drinking alcohol-free drinks, you're going to become addicted, in inverted commas, to them. It might be that you cane it a bit for a few weeks in the early days. I think I did, to be fair. But and of course, that's not fantastic in terms of if they've got sugar in or whatever. I'm sure it's much healthier purely to drink water. But the reality is, that was what I needed and wanted to get me through. And actually, I didn't drink anything like as much because we don't tend to, because they're not addictive. We don't carry on and on and on and then open a second bottle. We're usually good with a glass or two. So that's my take on what some people would call replacements. I personally think that alcohol-free beers are great. We know that lots of the big brands, your Heineken, your Peronis, all of those have got their 0%, and in fact they've grown exponentially, haven't they? You've probably seen stuff in the press about how I think it was Heineken actually said that the sales, the growth in the sales of their alcohol-free beers massively outgrew the percentage-wise, the sales of their regular beers. So we know this is a growth market. But then, of course, in addition, there are now loads of amazing artisan brands and, smaller brands who really work hard to do well with that kind of artisan brewing thing. So there are loads and loads and loads of alcohol-free beers to choose from, absolutely masses. And lots of pubs and places in the UK will sell alcohol-free beer on tap. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. If you just want to go to the pub with your mates and ask for a pint, great, ask for a pint of alcohol-free. What's not to like? It looks the same and you can have exactly the same experience, but you don't have to wake up feeling terrible. So the beers are an absolute winner. There's also now some incredible functional drinks. So Andy's brand, Authentic Brew, it's a functional mushroom-based drink. So you've got some amazing functional beers as well. And then you've got alcohol-free wines. And again, you've got lots of these still wines. And, they vary, in fairness, they do. Some are better than others, but you can, if you chill them and maybe have them with over ice or with a bit of fizzy water, I think they're really good. A lot of them. You've got brands like McGuigan's, you've got Oddbird, you've got a whole bunch of nice, white alcohol-free wines. And then, of course, you've got Naughty, who do a still alcohol-free wine. But, of course, Naughty are just especially known for their incredible alcohol-free fizz, which, it's honestly, it's just incredible. It's vegan, it's organic Chardonnay grapes. There's really been a lot of thought put into that brand, very low in sugar. You can't go wrong, really. If you want a celebratory alcohol-free drink, then think about Naughty. If you go to the soberclub.com, you click on a link there, you can see more information there about Naughty, because they're part of my Platinum Awards, which is great. And then you've got the alcohol-free spirits. So you've got companies like brands like Calenio, you've got Seedlip that have been around forever and a day, and you've got Lyre's. I mean, Lyre's, what an incredible brand they are. They have, I think it's 13 different spirit alternatives. So, we had a friend come around for dinner not so long ago who is a drinker. Obviously, we didn't supply alcohol, but we gave him a shot of all of these different types of spirits, and he absolutely loved it. I mean, he couldn't deny that the Liars, alternative to whiskey was just fantastic. In fact, I think I interviewed someone from Liars some time ago, and they said that the whiskey had won in a competition. It had won a taste test, but the category wasn't even for alcohol free. It had just won the taste test. So, if you're someone who does drink spirits, then think about trying these alcohol-free spirits. Again, they're not addictive because they're alcohol-free. So if that's your thing, absolutely. And in terms of white rum, I mean, you've got things like myth drinks. So if you're someone who loves things like espresso martinis, I mean, you can make a fantastic concoction there. And then there's unusual sparkling drinks. So they're not exactly the same as champagne alternatives, but things like Wild Idol, those kind of brands. So there's some just amazing brands out there. And then if you don't want the, in inverted commas, replacements, you've got all the other exciting grown-up alcohol-free drinks. Because I'm just a really big believer that I do not want an orange juice. I might want a soft drink, but don't want the same soft drink as my 12-year-old when they were 12 would have had, if you see what I mean. They aren't 12 anymore. But so I'm going to want something like Gimber, Gimber, which is an incredible fiery ginger drink. It's so good. It's kind of lightly sparkling. It's amazing. Proper grown-up drink. A 10-year-old probably wouldn't want it. And then there's artisan tonics, beautiful artisan tonics. And then, of course, there's some really unusual drinks like shrubs, they call them, don't they? And all kinds of really unusual things, syrups that you can add to tonics or to sparkling water. So there is a massive, massive choice. That's, the bottom line here. There's a huge choice of these drinks. It's not enough to just say, I don't like alcohol-free drinks. That's just crazy. That would be a bit like saying, I don't like any food. There will be an alcohol-free grown-up drink that you like. I can assure you, you just got to search. You've really just got to have a look around and try some different ones. Of course, then we should talk cocktails, alcohol-free cocktails. Again, they can just be fantastic, but be a little bit careful because they could also be sugar bombs. So if you're going somewhere, like people often talk about going on an all-inclusive holiday and feeling really nervous about what's going to be on offer, pretty much all resorts will serve you a mocktail. That's not difficult for them at all. You're basically you're asking for the drink without the alcohol added. You're having the tea without the G, basically. And it's easy for them to do. But here's the top tip there. Ask them for half the syrup, literally half the amount of syrup they usually put in. And then ask them to add extra citrus, preferably soda water instead of tonic, and fresh herbs. And then, if possible, instead of the sugary mix, ask them if they can use bitters or shrubs or a cordial. But on that note, be a bit careful because cordials can often contain artificial sweeteners. That's going to have to be a podcast for another day. Don't get me started. Please avoid artificial sweeteners at all costs. That means if you're buying a pre-mixed alcohol-free drink, so if you're buying a can of G&T or something from one of the supermarkets, be really careful because they will often have tonic water that contains artificial sweeteners. You need to look for tonic waters and drinks that they're going to contain some sugar, which of course is not sensational, but it's much better for you than having artificial sweeteners. So never have a zero drink. Honestly, please do your own research on this or drop me a message and I'll send you a link. But just never have zero drinks. Just never have them. And be careful because in the UK, they have sugar tax now, which means that brands find it cheaper to add artificial sweetener as well as sugar. And they don't even call it a diet drink. They just add artificial sweetness to it. So you've got to be a little bit careful when you're buying tonic waters. So yeah, just be careful of that. Or pre-mixed drinks, just be careful on that one. Um, just a little word on the ABV thing. So again, I get asked all the time, well, hold on a minute, my bottle or my can says 0.5%. Do I need to worry? Have I broken my sober streak? And the answer is absolutely not. So the way it works is that 0% drinks contain no alcohol. They have not been created starting life as any kind of alcohol. And there are many, many, many of them. But there are also drinks that are 0.5% drinks. And lots of AF beers are 0.5%. Lots of the botanicals are as well. It's the tiniest trace amount of alcohol, which would be the same amount as you'd get if you ate a ripe banana, or if you had some orange juice, or if you drank kombucha, which of course is the other drink that's a fantastic grown-up drink and even good for the gut. It's a trace amount. They do not trigger any cravings. You would have to drink, many, many vats before you even got to the tiniest actual percentage of alcohol that would make any kind of a difference. So you really don't need to be concerned about 0.5%. It cannot create intoxication. It cannot lead you to drinking more. But if you don't like the idea, then fine. Just make sure you have a zero, drink, because there's plenty of those too. So let's just talk about, just to mention a few more of the brands that are out there. It's been interesting to see some of the celebrities that have been jumping on the alcohol-free bandwagon. It's great because it just normalizes the choice, doesn't it? And it just makes for much more awareness of great alcohol-free drinks. So as you probably know, Kylie Minogue has alcohol-free wines, lovely sparkling wine. Elton John has partnered with different brands for events. I think there's a sparkling wine that's by Elton John now. Blake Lively has got Betty Buzz mixers, and Cara Delevingne has apparently got Delavite alcohol-free options. So, just to be clear, it's not niche anymore. It is not, that sober, boring person in the corner. It's really become mainstream. It's really become a perfectly acceptable choice. Even someone who drinks alcohol can make the decision that, they've had one drink and now they'd like to move on to alcohol free. It's cool now. It's not, it's definitely nothing to be ashamed of. So if you're around people who are sober shaming you, well, really, they need to come up to speed, seriously. Back on the mocktails for a sec, I did just want to say as well, make sure that you get your alcohol-free drink, again, back on that nice glass. Don't let them hand you your mocktail in a massive, kids' glass. Make them hand you your mocktail in exactly the same way as they would be handing someone their virgin, their mojito. Make sure you get your virgin mojito in the same glass with the same level of pimping. You also want your herbs and stuff on the top. And actually, on that note, it's a really fun idea if you're having friends round for drinks. It's a really fun idea to get this is what I did on the first alcohol-free party I hosted. I was feeling ever so nervous about it. But in the end, I just thought, you know what, it's my train set. So I had people around lunchtime, and I'd only been sober a few months. And I got a really big selection of alcohol-free drinks. So I got some alcohol-free beers, some alcohol-free fizz, and then I had about 4 different botanicals, so spirit style botanicals. I think one might have been Sea Arch, which is a lovely botanical drink, which has got sea kelp and all sorts of lovely ingredients. And then I think I had something like a seed lip, something like that. And then I had one of the Liar's orange type drinks. And then I had a bunch of artisan tonics, which do not contain artificial sweetener, and obviously some soda water and stuff. And then I had little dishes where people could pimp their own drink. So I gave them little shots, little shot glass things, so they could pour a shot of whatever they wanted. And then they could add a slice of orange, a little bit of rosemary, some olive on a stick, whatever, lemon, obviously, just a whole bunch of lovely pimping materials and a little cocktail umbrella. And people loved it because they got to pimp their own drinks, and it was really fun, really, really fun. So that removes the awkwardness because you just got a little recipe there. I just want to mention as well something about going out and determining what drinks you're going to have. You will have heard me say a lot of times on this podcast, if you're new to sobriety, then in the early weeks, you need to do you. And if that means you do not want to go out and you don't want to put yourself in line of any triggers, well, then, remember, no is a complete sentence. I love that phrase. It's so true. If you don't want to go, the answer is no. You don't have to give a reason. Don't go. But for many people, they do want to get out and about. And why would you not? I mean, if you were, God forbid, on medication and you couldn't drink alcohol, you'd still want to see your friends, wouldn't you? If you were pregnant, you're still going to go out and about. It's crazy that you would choose not to socialize purely because of alcohol. But of course, I get it in the early weeks. If that's your choice to stay home, stay home. But once you decide to get out and about, the tips are to prep in advance. So it's really, really important to know what bar or restaurant or party you're going to and find out in advance what your options are going to be in terms of drinks. So if you're going to a bar or a restaurant, ring ahead and ask them, what alcohol-free drinks do you have? And you can stress, before you tell me, I'm not talking about soft drinks such as Coke and lemonade. I know you'll have those. I'm talking about really great alcohol-free drinks, such as alcohol-free wine and artisan tonics and alcohol-free beers. What do you have, please? And get them to tell you exactly what they've got. They might be very specific. They might say, well, we've got Lucky Saint on tap, or we've got, Fresnet Zero or whatever. And literally make a note of that and decide what it is you want. And when you arrive and, your friend or your family member says, oh, great to see you, do you want your usual? You can say, you know what, I'd love a glass of naughty alcohol-free, please. Or, you know what, I'd love an alcohol-free beer. It's that one over there. I can see the bottle. You already know what you're going to have. It takes away any awkwardness. So know in advance what it is you want. Very important. Now, if you ask them and they say, well, we don't have any, we've got lemonade, we've got this, or we could do you a tonic water, and that's all. Then you've got a couple of options. You can obviously suck it up, or you can say to them, oh, okay, well, I would like grown-up alcohol-free drinks. I'd love to still come to your venue. But I'd like to bring with me my own alcohol-free beer, and I'm very happy to pay you corkage for a soft drink. And that's the important piece there. The lovely Laura at Club Soda, who do incredible work for campaigning for low and no alcohol drinks, taught me that one a long time ago. You offer to pay corkage for a soft drink because you're not drinking alcohol. So they can't do that, oh, the corkage will be 26 quid thing. You're going to pay corkage for a soft drink. Most places will actually be very cool about you just bringing your own drink if they can't provide what it is you're asking for. If they're sensible, they'll listen to what it is you're asking for and they'll order it in. Because why would they not? They're going to make far more money out of you if they can sell you a decent alcohol-free drink. They're going to make far more than if all they can do is sell you a little bit of soda water and then you don't spend any more money with them. So great idea to actually just tell them what it is you want. I have had situations, I think I mentioned it on a podcast fairly recently, where we had a lunch planned. We went along in advance because we wanted to make sure we got the menu right, taking some clients out. and they didn't have any alcohol-free wines. It was a bit pitiful, really. And we said, well, look, we are going to want to bring our own because these clients are sober, and we want to, we want to impress them, quite frankly, with a lovely restaurant with lovely drinks. And so, is it okay if we bring our own? And they said, well, that will be £26 per bottle for the corkage. And we said, no, I don't think so. Because the drinks are not alcoholic drinks, you can charge us corkage as if we bought a Coca-Cola. How does that sound? And they had to acquiesce and go, oh, yes, I see, I understand. So we did rock up with our bottles of Naughty or whatever it was. But here's the thing, they'd really taken that on board. And when they served us our food on a completely complimentary basis, they also brought us out a bottle of alcohol-free wine. Interestingly, it was one I hadn't heard of before, but they'd looked into it. They'd gone to their supplier. They'd bought us a bottle of alcohol-free wine, and they were giving it to us on a complimentary basis for us to try it. How cool is that? So we were able to literally educate them. Look after your clients who don't drink. For goodness sake, you'd be crazy not to. So that's just a word on taking your own. If you're going to a party or someone's house, always, always, always take a decent stash of alcohol-free drinks. Take plenty for yourself and a bit extra, because, you always find that drinkers end up wanting some of your stash. Happens every single time. Okay. So that's just a little word on thinking ahead. And, it is changing. I have to say it's changing. I do find the function kind of space in the UK is slow. There are still many functions that I attend, whether that's an awards ceremony, not mine obviously, but an awards ceremony or some kind of function where they're just not up to speed on this. But again, on that note, if you're going to be attending a wedding or a function, you'll be sent an invitation which will give you an opportunity to confirm your dietary requirements. And I always include in my dietary requirements, I require decent grown-up alcohol-free drinks. And then I might put an example there. It's a dietary requirement. We know, don't we, that if you're going to a function, typically they allow for I think it's like half a bottle of wine per person. That they kind of allow for that, and then it all comes out in the wash, because of course there'll be some people who don't drink any, and there'll be others who drink several bottles, and it all comes out in the wash. But then how cheeky is it that when you're at that wedding or function, you refuse the wine and you say, what have you got that's alcohol free? And they'll typically say, well, you can go to the bar and you can buy an elderflower cordial. That'll be 12 quid. I mean, come on. I'm here as a guest, just like everyone else. Don't treat me differently. Don't make me pay more because I'm not drinking alcohol. Crazy. So write it down as a dietary requirement. That's what you require. And if you have an opportunity to speak personally to the person organizing it, the person hosting the wedding or the party or whatever, ask them. Say, please, would you make sure that there is going to be some provision made for decent alcohol-free drinks? I'd love to be able to toast the occasion with a nice drink. And for me, that means one that doesn't contain alcohol. It is getting better, I have to say. I shouldn't complain too much. I did go to, I was invited to a BBC event last summer. It was linked to honouring Steve Wright. And ahead of the function, I sent my dietary requirements in and said that I required alcohol-free drinks, for example, sparkling alcohol-free wine. And I arrived and there was someone standing at the door, either side of the door, with trays of what looked like champagne. And they offered it to me, and I said, oh, no, thank you. I'd like something alcohol-free. And they just pointed over to the other person with a tray and said, oh, those are alcohol-free. And I'm like, result. I don't know whether they were doing it anyway or whether they read my email, but I was very grateful. So if you are hosting the alcohol-free party, as I've already said, get loads of alcohol-free drinks. Have that little station, offer your garnishes so people can pimp their drinks. Edible flowers are lovely as well to put in drinks. Things like berries, herbs, beautiful edible flowers just look really, really beautiful. And you can create your own signature alcohol-free cocktail. if you do want to serve alcohol as well for those people who drink, of course that's up to you. Just keep it completely separate so nobody, makes a mistake. I did once at a party accidentally pick up a glass of wine that I thought was my alcohol-free wine. I picked it up and took a sip by accident. Oh God, I could not get to the sink to spit it out quick enough. I swear it tasted like petrol. It actually tasted like petrol. It was absolutely vile. God knows how I used to put that stuff in me every day. Can't believe it. Anyway, what else do I want to share with you? I think I've probably covered lots of stuff around alcohol-free drinks, but I think it is just this idea that it's still okay to treat ourselves. We shouldn't be getting into this thinking that we're deprived. You know this mantra, keep the ritual, change the ingredients, but hopefully you know my other mantra, that you are never allowed to use the phrase giving up. When we say the phrase giving up, our unconscious mind hears that we're deprived, that we're missing out on something, that it's fine for everyone else because they've got their lovely treats and their drinks and all the rest of it. But poor old me, I'm missing out. So we're never allowed to use that phrase in my book because your unconscious mind hears, and we've got to be careful what we say because we're listening, right? So we need to use different phrases. We're quitting alcohol, we're ditching the booze. And part of that means that we never use that phrase give up because we're focusing only on what we're gaining, only on what we're gaining. And that's the important bit. So when it comes to drink, again, we're not going to be thinking, the fear of missing out. Everyone else is having a lovely time because they're drinking alcohol. It's bonkers. How can they possibly be having a great time because they're putting poison in their body? They may be having a great time. That will be despite the alcohol, not because of it, right? So when we really, really get to grips with this, we realize it's the ritual, it's the associations, it's not the toxic liquid that's doing it for you. And when I work with one-to-one clients, they do say to me, this has really helped me. I didn't realize till now that it was the moment I was craving. It was the feeling of not being at work anymore, the feeling of stepping away from the noise for a bit, not the alcohol. Loads of clients tell me choosing an alcohol-free drink has literally helped me break the habit. It's a habit. We reach for a drink because of what we think it will give to us, but it's not true. It's not true that it's the alcohol that does that. Pouring a drink may well give us the dopamine, but remember, it's not what's in the glass, it's the glass. Okay. We can still have a treat, but we get our mornings back as well. And that's the key thing. When we're choosing to be alcohol-free, it is never about deprivation. There is nothing at all to lose. Nothing. I defy anyone to come back to me and tell me that they genuinely miss drinking. Really, honestly, I've never met anyone, certainly not anyone who's done the work, who's actually tried to focus on personal development and actually starting to like themselves. Nobody prefers themselves drunk. Come on. It's all about upgrading your life. It's about choosing rituals that support you to help you find the person you really are. It's all about the support. It's about the level up, not about sabotage. And don't forget, if you're thinking, I need some help with this, I know I do have one-to-one coaching clients. I've also trained many people to be sober coaches. And of course, we run the Sober Club, where we have lots of conversations, of course, about alcohol-free drinks and everything else. And we help you to navigate the psychology and help you change the habits and the identity shift, because to a certain extent, it is about stepping into a new identity. That's why I never promise anyone that they're going to feel sensational after week one. I mean, some people do. They're so ready to do this that at the end of the first week, they're like, wow, that's it, I'm done. For other people, it's much slower. They've got to literally retrain those neural pathways and start new habits and form different thoughts and start to notice the negativity, and they're stepping into a whole new identity. But man, is it worth it? it is so worth it. Push through if you're in that hard bit, really push through. There's such an incredible joy of choosing to be sober. So just a recap then, you do not have to give up the ritual. Just change the ingredients. You still get the treat, you still get the moment, you still get the dopamine, you still get the glass, you still get the celebration, you still get the social situation where you can chink a glass and you're doing the same as everyone else if that feels important to you, but you still get you fully present, fully alive, actually giving yourself the best chance at being in optimum health that it's possible to be. And it's not the alcohol that makes the moment special. It's you that makes the moment special. It's not the alcohol that makes a party fun. If the party's fun, it's fun because of the people, the music, the stuff you're doing, despite the alcohol, but never because of it. Never because of it. So, anyways, thank you for letting me have that little rant. There are many great alcohol-free drinks to choose from. Some of them I've featured on the podcast over the last few years. There are hundreds of episodes of this podcast, by the way. If you're new to us, go back and have a listen. You'll see some of the great brands featured there. Naughty Alcohol Free have entered my Platinum Awards for natural products and services. So if you go to imperfectlynatural.com, I'll put a link in the show notes. You can give them a little vote. You can nominate them in the awards. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with somebody who might want a bit of inspiration. And don't forget, as I say, if you want some support, whether you're early in your journey or you've been sober for ages, but you want to focus on the well-being stuff, then come and grab some one-to-one coaching or join us in the Sober Club. It's the soberclub.com. Just a word about the sober coach training that I offer. I do train people to be sober coaches. The price for the training is rising, and we have a flash sale. That sounds very salesy, doesn't it? But we have a special offer, basically. So if you're someone who's been thinking about it for ages, and maybe you've attended one of our webinars, maybe we've had a chat, but you've been thinking, I am a bit unfulfilled in the work that I do, and I actually would like to do this training. Lots of people do the Sober Coach training for their own personal growth, to lay the foundations for their own sobriety. Of course, others do it because it gives them all the skills, absolutely everything they need to start a new business or to start a side project, or whichever way they want to use it. The reality is that for lots of people, they want to turn their sobriety into some kind of purpose, because it just feels great to be able to give back. And if you're a bit unfulfilled in the work that you do and you have this gift, then why would you not want to share it? So the training equips you to do all kinds of things with the tools and techniques. You don't have to just be a coach working one-to-one with others. There are many, many different approaches. The groups are very small. There's lots of one-to-one involvement with me. The mentoring continues. We don't just throw some stuff at you and then leave you in the lurch. It's really comprehensive, and the method that we teach is a holistic sobriety method. So you do need to be interested in holistic sobriety for this to be of interest to you. So as I say, we've got a sale in inverted commas. It's the lowest price it will ever be, just till the end of July. So if you wanted to take advantage of that, you would need to secure your place and pay for the training before the end of July. And then you could join us on the training that starts in October, or even the training that starts in January, but you would need to secure your payment. So if that's of interest, join us for a free webinar. The webinar is on Thursday, July the 23rd at 7:30 p.m. So if you click the link in the show notes, you can register there, or you can go to thesoberclub.com and click on events, and there you can register from there for the webinar Thursday, 23rd of July at 7:30. And it's absolutely no salesy pressure. You can just come and explore what it might look like to turn your sobriety into purpose. Might be the right time for you. Who knows? Join us on the webinar. So thank you for listening. And don't forget, follow me on social media at Janie Lee Grace. You can find me there. Very excited for next week, by the way, because the Wham documentary is coming out. Looking forward to going to see that, see whether you can actually see myself and the fellow backing singer Janet jigging away on the stage. We were on that tour of China and all the Wham tours, so it's very exciting, completely unrelated to anything, but just sort of share that. You can follow me, actually. I've got another Instagram account. I've literally just started it, Wham Tour Singers, so follow us there as well. If you're a fan of the 80s and you want some of that memorabilia, share some of your pics. I would love that. Love to see someone else who had big hair in the 80s. Can't just be me. I'll see you next time. Don't forget to reach out if you're struggling. Seriously, don't hold up and try and do this on your own. Reach out, drop me a message. If I get that message, I promise you I will reply. Can't say fairer than that, can you? I'll see you next time. Hopefully I'll see you on the webinar, Thursday, 23rd of July.
Thank you for listening to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by the Sober Club. Please rate and review. And if you want support, accountability and inspiration, and you want to live your best life without the booze, check out thesoberclub.com.